Good afternoon, my renegades. Welcome back to Rogue Radio. My name is Sarah Jane, and today is gonna be Renegade Times because I haven't done this in a very long time, and I'm very, very sorry. I miss you guys. Oh my god. So yes, we're gonna jump right into that. I am really sorry for kind of just falling off the earth for a little bit. You know, life. Gotta take care of life stuff too, of course. But anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna talk about my life right now. It's crazy, but you know, it's wonderful. Alright, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, links will be down in the description on my YouTube channel. Yes, and I know I've been kind of lazy with Anchor posting the links and everything. It takes a while for me. I'm not as tech savvy as I used to be back in the day. I used to be the copy and paste queen, but now I'm not. So, please be patient with me. I will do everything I can to put all the links down in the description below on Anchor as well. And also, if you guys haven't heard on my Instagram, I have a book recommendation for you guys. It's called Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, and it is a first-hand account of all of the horrible things that this ex-CIA agent has witnessed, has found in documents, and it was put in a book, and it's incredible. I have learned so much already, and I'm almost finished with the chapter. The first, I will kind of talk about a little bit of it because I'm excited about it. Like, this book is, only because I like learning about, you know, the truth. I guess that's just me. I like to find the truth out everywhere. Like, you know, I don't know what I'm talking about now. Okay, I've recovered from my brain fart. Anyways. Basically what the first chapter is about is how the government has decided to put in a system where it's a caste system, it's a silent weapon, it's a quiet war sort of thing, and it's also like the laws of our land, like the laws of what we abide by are basically the laws of motion that Isaac Newton set up. And I wish I could explain it a lot more, but basically who, like, the elite are, the elite think of us as cattle. They don't think of us as people. So they put up these laws of motion as laws of the land in order to keep us controllable, which to me, when I first started reading it, it was crazy. I was like, I can't believe this. But then it started making sense as I kept on reading it, and it is eye-opening. Very eye-opening. And I got this off of Amazon.com, and I will have to say you have to search for it, for the physical copy, because they do have the Audible and the Kindle version, but you have to, really look for the book version, like the paperback version. It took me a while to find the physical version of the book, and I think it was like $14.99. It wasn't that bad, and it's a pretty sizable book for reading. It's not like a pamphlet or anything. It's a literal thick book, and so yes, I'm very excited. And you know what? That's where I've been. I've fallen off the earth to read a book. That's what happened. Okay, let's just get into the news. First is politics. Okay, yeah, so Brittney Griner sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison. So, WNBA star Brittney Griner was sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison on Thursday. Russian prosecutors had argued that Griner, who was convicted of sneaking marijuana vaping materials into the country, should serve 9.5 years in prison. The request came during the closing arguments in a court outside Moscow, nearly 6 months after the 6'9" WNBA star nabbed at an airport, was nabbed at an airport with contraband. The U.S. has been trying to negotiate her release, reportedly considering offering a notorious Russian arms dealer imprisoned her here as a trade. Okay. Let's see. I never meant to hurt anybody. I never meant to put in jeopardy the Russian population. I never meant to break any laws here, Griner said prior to the delivery of the verdict in Kimki City courthouse. I made an honest mistake, and I hope that in your ruling that it doesn't end my life here. I know everybody keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that this is far from this courtroom. So, I feel like, I'm not gonna say that Brittney's at fault, because I know a lot of people smoke weed now. It's not my thing. I don't like doing that, but I know some people do it for medicinal purposes or for anxiety purposes. I'm not a big expert on researching drugs. Maybe I'll end up doing that at some point, but I usually try not to touch upon drugs, because nowadays people like to defend weed, and I have a very negative opinion on weed. But I'm saying she's a professional basketball player. How do I say this? Anybody going to a foreign country should at least look up the laws first, because once you're in that country, those laws apply to you. And I can already see that this might actually put America in danger because of the honest mistake that she made. I'm not saying it's her fault, but I am saying that Russia is already at war with Ukraine at the moment. You don't want to piss Russia off right now. And I'm only saying that because Russia's powerful. I know America is too, but I don't think it's as powerful as Russia at the moment. Biden has weakened America very much, and that's all I'm really going to say. This needs to be treaded on lightly, very lightly, like tiptoe. This is terrible. Griner had already acknowledged having vape cartridges and canvas. Whoa. I can't talk. Vape cartridges with cannabis oil in her luggage in a guilty plea last month, but Russian judges nonetheless have wide discretion in meting about sentences. Let's see. She faced up to 10 years, and prosecutors sought most of that. So, possession of drugs, I don't know how long people go into jail in America for that, but I don't know. It sounds pretty harsh. That sounds very harsh for someone to be in possession of weed in a foreign country. But I mean, like I said, laws need to be abided once you're in that country. But that's crazy. Maria Blagovinla, a lawyer in Griner's defense team, argued that Griner brought the cartridges to Russia by mistake and only used cannabis as medicine, and only while in Arizona, where medicinal marijuana is legal. Griner, who plays WNBA Phoenix Mercury, I don't know, had flown to Russia to finish her season for UMMC at Kartenberg. When she was arrested, the team competes in the Russian Premier League and FIBA, Europe, EuroLeague, WNBA players can make far bigger salaries playing in Europe and Asia during the league's off-season, and they can earn in the United States, where interest in women's basketball is limited. Let's see. Before the trial began last month, the State Department designated her as wrongfully detained. Last week, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke to his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, urging him to accept an exchange in which Griner and Paul Whelan, an American imprisoned in Russia on an espionage conviction, would be freed, reportedly for notorious arms trader Victor Bout. The White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Monday Russia has made a bad faith counteroffer in response to the U.S. government's offer. All right. Well, it probably was an honest mistake. People make mistakes every day. I just hope that she gets home safely and that everything is kind of smoothed over after all of this. This is nuts. Okay, I just saw the title for this one, so we're just going to go ahead and do it. We're going to go ahead and read the one real quick, bruh. Okay. Woke DA that DeSantis suspended quoted Bible to justify arrest of Christian pastor. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. The Florida State Attorney GOP Governor Ron DeSantis suspended... hang on. Florida State Attorney that GOP Governor Ron DeSantis suspended for the woke policies had the audacity to quote the Bible in 2020 to justify the arrest of a Christian pastor holding public services. What's wrong with that? In March 2020, Hillsborough State Attorney Andrew Warren justified that the arrest of Pastor Rodney Howard Brown of River Church at Tampa Bay for violating the guidelines prohibiting large gatherings during COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, no, shut up. Leave the pastor alone, man. Listen, real pastors do that crap. They do that, okay? I ain't got nothing wrong with this pastor. There's nothing wrong with this pastor. I ain't got nothing against the man. He actually worked on faith. The cool and amazing pastors that actually run churches, and a lot of the time I'm against a lot of pastors and churches because they go with the flow of the world. But pastors who go against the flow and decide to work on faith, the ones that are the freaking weirdos to everybody else, listen, I'm with you, bro. I'm sorry. I'm already psyched for some reason. Cause listen, I know that the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, and during quarantine and all those guidelines and everything else, it was hell. Okay, let me just admit that. It was hell staying inside. It was hell not doing the things that we were used to doing and going about our daily routines and everything like that. But listen, you cannot stop a man of God bringing in his congregation to hear the word. That's never gonna stop, okay? Listen, the Pharisees tried to stop Jesus from preaching the word. All of the people, I'm sorry, why did I turn blonde? The Apostle Paul they tried to, silence him. They tried to silence Peter. They tried to silence all of the disciples. Don't tell me that this is not a persecution tactic, okay? No, the spiritual side of this, there's nothing wrong with a man of God preaching the word during a pandemic, okay? I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. That's my opinion on it. My very strong, spiritual, Christian opinion on it. But anyway, to justify the arrest, Warren declared putting your parishioners at risk in a time of an emergency, like it's not, like this is not only reckless, but it's illegal, Warren declared. I'd like to note that I think it's unfortunate that the pastor here is hiding behind the First Amendment. We're not hiding it, we're expressing it. See, that's the thing. If a white person, or not, I don't even know if he's white, but listen, this is the prejudice nowadays. I'll have to look this up, but I know either just after the pandemic or just before those guidelines lifted, like the quarantine lifted, everybody got upset. Let me stop. I have to think before I talk. George Floyd was shot. All right. This was around the time either just after or just before the quarantine lifted off of America. Okay. I know this because that's when I started really going in on my podcasts and trying to speak the truth and everything. Because I've also talked about George Floyd and everything. But it's okay for everybody who is part of the BLM to go ahead. Some people, okay? Some people from the BLM decide to protest and burn down buildings and all of that other stuff. It's fine. They call that freedom of speech. But when someone who is of faith, regardless of their color, or even if they are white, who end up expressing their faith during the pandemic and expressing how much faith we need in God during this time of crisis, we're hiding behind the First Amendment. We're using the First Amendment as an excuse to do everything. What? I'm sorry. What about everybody else burning buildings and stuff? Well, I mean, isn't that what are you gonna do with those people? What are you gonna do with them? Huh? This is the hypocrisy of the government. I just freaking hate it. Anyway, I'd like to note that I think it's unfortunate that the pastor here is hiding behind the First Amendment. It's absolutely clear that emergency orders like this are constitutional and valid. I don't care. In my opinion, I don't care. If the pandemic rules or the guidelines or anything like that, if I ended up going to a church that I liked during the pandemic, it's not going to stop me from going to church. Especially if that pastor is also a freaking rogue bro, okay, and says, forget that, you're coming to church, we're having church. Warren then cited the Bible. I'd remind the good pastor of Mark 12:31, which says, there is no more important commandment than to love thy neighbor as thyself. Loving your neighbors is protecting them, not jeopardizing their faith by exposing them to virus. Okay. So you quote Mark, all right? Love thy neighbor as thyself. Let me get my Bible real quick. Listen, you ain't gonna twist the scripture with me, bro. Let me go get this. I am through. I'm done. I'm through. Let me find it real quick, okay? Because there's one thing that you gotta learn about the Bible, is if you want to really understand one scripture, you have to read a little farther in order to figure out what Jesus was actually trying to say. Now, yes, love thy neighbor, respect each other, love each other, understand each other. Yes, that's fine. That's all good and well. Let me focus. I'm getting upset. Matthew, Mark. What was it? I got it. I didn't know I was gonna read Mark. Mark 12:31. Let me go get it. The second is equally important. Love thy neighbor as thyself. No other commandment is greater than these. The teacher of religious law replied, Well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. And I know it is important to love them with all my heart and all my understanding and all my strength, to love thy neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law. Realizing how much the man understood Jesus to him, or what Jesus said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. All right. The most important commandment, one of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, and so he asked of all the commandments, which of these is the most important? The most important commandment is to listen. Is this: Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. There is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. Okay. So before I keep reading the article, this was around the time when Jesus was speaking from different territories in Israel. Different territories around Israel as well. So when you quote the Bible, yes, you're allowed to love thy neighbor, respect thy neighbor, and everything like that. But listen, if it is actually stepping on your faith in God, then you can, in my opinion, okay, you don't need to do that. You can love your neighbor and still disagree with them. You can love your neighbor and still not have the same opinion and the same guidelines and the same values as them. You can love your neighbor despite the differences. So your difference, the differences that this man has compared to my values, it's not going to stop me from going to my house ministry every Thursday. During that pandemic, I ended up doing that throughout the whole quarantine pandemic. I loved it. None of us got sick. None of us ended up getting hurt because we kept on quoting Psalms 91, which basically says God protects us from the pestilence, and also, 1,000 may fall on my right hand, 10,000 may fall on my left, but none shall come near me. So, listen, I could go ahead and quote the Bible more and more and more, but the thing is that people have been doing this over and over and over again, twisting the Bible. I understand. Like, listen, if this is how you want to love your neighbor, by not going to church and not actually getting filled with the Holy Spirit and filled with God's Word, go ahead and do it, but I don't know. It just sucks. It sucks that a lot of people sometimes don't have a way of going to church. They don't have a Bible sometimes. They don't really trust anyone but the church. And to me, yes, you shouldn't trust the church, but I don't understand why it was such a horrible thing for faith-based people coming together and praising God through the whole thing. I don't understand that. Sure, he can use that scripture. Okay? To me, I still think that he twisted it into people believing that, oh, well, I have to stay home. That's how I love my neighbor. No. If you want to go ahead and go to church, if that's how you get filled spiritually, I have nothing bad to say about that, especially if it's a pastor that decides to go against what the Pharisees tell them, okay, and go ahead and praise God anyways. I love that. Go ahead and do that, bro. I'm not mad at you. It is not about a virus. It's about the church being a essential service to the community. I'm sorry. Hang on. Loving your neighbors is protecting them, not jeopardizing their health by exposing them to this deadly virus. Okay, that's what he says. So, Howard Brown states, it's not about a virus, it's about a church being an essential service to the community, Howard Brown had insisted. By mid-May, Warren had changed his mind. His office announced it would not pursue the case against Howard Brown. Still, Warren insisted that the arrest of Howard Brown remains an appropriate step taken by law enforcement to immediately correct irresponsible behavior after repeated efforts to gain cooperation in other ways were not so successful. How can you basically what? You decided not to pursue it because probably, DeSantis decided to rip you a new one. And now you're saying, oh, I still believe that, this is a very appropriate step for, irresponsible behavior. I'm sorry. I'm on a new level today. I don't know what's going on. The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in state attorneys, DeSantis said. We are not going to allow this pathogen of ignoring the law to get a foothold in the state of Florida. At the press conference where DeSantis suspended Warren, former Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan blistered Warren, saying, "Let me tell you something. Andrew Warren is a fraud." Yeah. Did you get that? Okay. I've never been good at sugarcoating anything, Dugan said. I love people who don't sugarcoat it. I love it. Dugan, respect. That's possibly why it took me 28 years to become a chief police. He's a fraud. He has misled the people of Hillsborough County. Okay. Do you remember back during the riots when we arrested 67 people one night? Dugan asked. And then he, a few weeks later, has a press conference, and what he does say at the press conference, what does he say at the, okay, hang on, I'm reading too slow. He says that there were no acts of violence, no property damage. He must not have read the police report. There were pictures of a police car, broken windshields. As the cops tried to get out of the cars, protesters pushed their doors shut on them and wouldn't allow them out of the cars. So when you say there's no acts of violence, when you say there's no property damage at a press conference, where I come from, you're lying. Heck yes. Those 67 people got arrested. Andrew Warren said that at his press conference that he would work with local law enforcement to expunge those arrests. He does not have the ability to do administrative expungement on those arrests. Do you know how many articles have been written about the how he expunged those arrests? How would you like to be one of those 67 people that got arrested and you think that that arrest has been expunged? Ask Andrew Warren how many of those expungements he did, and the answer will be 0. Not a single arrest has been expunged. He has misled the community. That's amazing. I love Dugan. Dugan, bro, you're a renegade now. I'm very renegade. Anyway, let's go. Okay, bolt of lightning across the street from the White House. I would like to see a bolt of lightning destroy the White House. That's what I would like to see. But you know what? Yeah, okay. 2 dead after lightning strikes near the White House. 2 people are dead and 2 others are injured after a bolt of lightning struck near the White House in Washington, D.C. Thursday evening. The bolt hit a tree in Lafayette Park, across the street from the White House during an evening storm. James Mueller, 76, and Donna Mueller, 75, died from the injuries sustained in the incident. Okay. According to CNN, why are we looking up CNN Daily Wire? I don't understand that one. The couple was visiting the Nationals' capital from Wisconsin. The condition of the 2 others injured is not immediately clear, and the party was sheltering from the storm under the tree when the lightning struck. Listen, I would be a bitch and say that hiding under a tree during a lightning storm is the stupidest thing that you can do, because lightning strikes the tallest thing in the area. But I'm not going to, because 2 elderly people died. They didn't deserve that. But I'm just saying, for future reference, for everybody who's listening, do not hide under a tree. Okay? If you are in a park, take off all the metal off of you, because it will most likely strike metal. But it does strike trees because they end up being the tallest thing in the area. Take off all your metal, go ahead, lose it, and then at least try to find a building to cover from if you can. But if not, I guess a tree is fine, but I'm just saying, to your own risk. We are saddened by the tragic loss of life after the lightning strike in Lafayette Park. Our hearts are with the families who lost loved ones, and we are praying for those still fighting for their lives, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement, according to NPR. DC Fire and EMS officials Vito Maglio, urged people to shelter indoors during a storm. If you see lightning or hear thunder, you should seek shelter inside of a building or a vehicle. I would not personally recommend a vehicle, because a vehicle is metal, and I don't know. I feel like you would still have to take off a lot of metal things and refuse to touch the metal inside the car. But do not attempt to seek shelter under a tree, he said, according to NPR. Yeah. Someone said in the comments, not the 2 we were hoping for. You are awful. Hello, my renegades. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and computer, and when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download your Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's a lot of fun, so come join us. Alright, here comes the weird news. Let's just read this. In other news, Demi Lovato decided to change her pronouns from they, them to she, her. And, you know, the Rogue Radio has definitely found a place of, disdain for Demi Lovato. So, we're just gonna go ahead and look that freaking article up real quick. Yes. So you guys remember the time when she ended up attacking a yogurt shop, calling them diet culture vultures, because apparently she expected all of the cookies to be labeled diabetic cookies, vegan cookies, all this, instead of being like gluten-free and all this other shit. All this other crap, sorry. And so she ends up going ahead and apologizing, saying, I don't always get it right. No one gets it right, Demi. Just because you're a celebrity, listen, you can say that you're not perfect. Go ahead and say it. Nobody's freaking perfect. Nobody expects you to. I don't expect you to, okay? But I am going to hold you to the shit that you say, because it's freaking hypocritical. But anyway, let's just read this article before I go ahead and blow my top. But you call me they, but I'm still a daddy's girl. Oh, Demi Lovato confuses Twitter with pronouns again. Once again, Demi Lovato is confusing everyone. Let's see. The 29-year-old former Disney star came out as queer, pansexual, and non-binary in 2020. Oh, listen, queer. Doesn't that just mean that you're gay-ish, pansexual, and non-binary? I can understand the pansexual part. Non-binary. Okay. In 2021, and instructed fans to start using they-them pronouns. Since then, Lovato has embarked on a journey of self-discovery, which included a giant spider tattoo and encouraging followers to be a slut and make porn. I didn't hear about that one. Disclosure, the Daily Wire has announced plans for kids' entertainment content. Okay. Now, the Dancing with the Devil singer, oh, ma'am, you're demon-possessed. I mean, a woman who decides to, talk to ghosts and meditate on spiritual things, you're demon-possessed. I mean, a woman who literally looks like one of those knockoff action figures, because she's got, like, black eyeliner and her head is shaved and stuff like that. She looks like one of those Dollar Tree Batgirl knockoff action figures that you get from, like, the toy aisle in Dollar Tree. Anyway, let's see. Lovato shared a photo. How in the hell? Listen, be a slut and make porn. Ma'am, I don't understand how prostitution and selling your body to other people is able to make you empowered, but then again, there's an OnlyFans account for everybody and everything. But whatever. Now, the Dancing with the Devil singer just did something unexpected on social media. Lovato shared a photo on Twitter and Instagram which depicted the star wearing a skirt, suit, a skirt, suit jacket, sneakers, slicked back hair, and a full face of makeup. Okay? That sounds like she's 3 and she fell into her mom and dad's closet. The caption is, "What's drawing the most attention?" As it reads, "You call me they, but I'm still daddy's girl." A few commenters were quick to point out how it was Lovato who insisted on being called they. All of it appears to be drumming up hype for the singer's upcoming album, which will be more emo rock style and leave the pop music genre behind. The emo no. I can't say that the emo community won't accept you, Demi, because a lot of the emo community is LGBTQ. I'm not trying to say that. But ma'am, pick a side. Pick a side. What on earth? Lovato even held a funeral for Pop Demi to signify changing to a new sound. Okay. While describing the new album, Lovato told Rolling Stone, "There's a bit of, and when I say heaviness, I don't mean lyrically, but heaviness as in some of the set I have done before, which is exciting. It's a new era reminiscent of my first era." Okay. Maybe she's going back to her roots. Who knows? I know, like, the first time she came out with one of her songs was, like, La La Land. And to be honest, it was a bop. It's still a bop to this day. I kind of like that song. I don't actually hate Demi Lovato. I just know that she's confusing people and saying the dumbest crap. And I'm just waiting for her to actually find a place where she can stand on solidly, I guess. But anyway, Lovato has been embracing radical change over the last few years, so it's no wonder the singer's music is evolving, just like Lovato's looks, mood, and even pronouns are changing. The Sunny with a Chance album recently debuted a new forearm tattoo. Alumni recently debuted a new forearm tattoo that says "Choose Love." Okay, let's see. The caption read, "I'm inspired by the work Choose Love and their partners are doing to support refugees around the world, including those fleeing Ukraine." Daily Mail reported that Choose Love is a non-profit that supports refugees and misplaced persons all over the world. That's interesting. Lots of Lovato's fans, who dubbed themselves Lovatics, are thrilled with the singer's new photos and upcoming album release. There are also critics who can't stand the former Disney star constantly pulling attention-seeker stunts. Yes, I do believe that, she has a problem with seeking attention. The only reason why I say that is because she flip-flops all the time. And to be honest, yes, she's human. No, she's not perfect. All of this other stuff. It's very obvious that she's not perfect. It's very obvious that, yes, she's a celebrity and that she is in the light and all of that. She's allowed to choose whatever she wants to be, however she feels she wants to be, and all of that other stuff. That's fine. The problem is that it's almost every week with her where she's like, "Oh, I'm they, them. Oh, I'm she, her. Oh, I'm this, I'm that." I've talked about the LGBTQ and how I'm doing my best to be more loving towards the LGBTQ. I still love you guys. I do. But when people do this, it's hard for me to believe that they're actually supporting you guys. I've never seen someone who needs more attention in my life, someone said. The Blackout author said Lovato is the perfect example of women that overuse, or no, that overshare. They want attention and they pretend that it's helping them. She went on to say that the former Disney star is the queen of this. I don't understand why people come to social media to overshare, Owen said. I think the answer to it is because they all are looking for someone in the comments to be like, you're so great, that's amazing, you're so amazing, oh my god, so brave for speaking out for your multiple personality disorder, me too, oh my god, you're amazing. It's like, actually, the disorder that you're suffering from is a need for attention on social media, and Demi very much has this disorder. Yeah. You know what? She's not alone. A lot of TikTokers do that too. They fake disorders in order to, have attention. And if I'm gonna talk a bit differently about Demi Lovato, I will say that she has gone through a lot of trauma. She has gone through eating disorders and everything like that. I've watched her documentary, about, how this was before she ended up becoming a they, them pronoun person, all that. I did watch her eating disorder documentary, and it was very eye-opening. I'm not going to say that, what she's going through doesn't have trauma behind it, because I wouldn't be a recovery coach if I did say that, If I said that, oh, she's never experienced trauma and that's why she's acting like this, I'd be a liar. But I will say that she's not managing it the best way possible. I know she's doing her best, and I understand that. Like I said, I don't hate the woman. I just don't understand her, the way that, she ends up doing things. It's very confusing. And for someone who is a celebrity and who is in the spotlight, you're confusing your followers and your fans and everything like that. So I feel like privacy is something that she needs to value right now, especially if she is actually going through all this stuff, because the more she overshares, because they're right, she does overshare. The more she overshares, the more her fans will be more frustrated and confused with her. But that's just me. Come on, I need to get back. Alright, let's see here. Minnesota woman's fingernails dubbed the longest in the world. Interesting. August 3rd, a Minnesota woman whose fingernails have combined the length of 42 feet and 10.4 inches was awarded the Guinness Book of World Records title. Okay, Diana Armstrong earned the records for the longest fingernails on a pair of hands, for a female, and the longest fingernails on a pair of hands ever for a female, after Guinness World Records verified the length of her nails. Armstrong, who has been growing out her nails for over 25 years, said her longest nail is her right thumb, and at 4 feet and 6.7 inches. Let's see. Her shortest is her left pinky, measuring 3 feet and 7 inches long. Armstrong said she initially started growing her fingernails after her daughter Letitia died from an asthma attack. at the age of 16. Aww. She was the only one who did my nails, she said. She polished them and filed them for me, Armstrong told Guinness World Records. She did my nails that night before, and she was up all night, so I just couldn't cut my nails off after that. Aww. Alright, you guys know how much I love foxes, or maybe you guys don't. That's like one of my favorite animals. So, fox with head stuck in tire rescued in Connecticut. Authorities in Connecticut came to the rescue of a fox found with its head stuck through the middle of a discarded tire. The Connecticut State Environmental Conservation Police said in a Facebook post, "There's people like that at the state Connecticut Environmental Conservation Police." All right, that officers responded to the northwestern part of the state on a report of a fox in distress. They arrived to find the animal's head was stuck through the opening in the middle of a discarded tire's rim. The post said the fox was likely chasing a small rodent when it stuck its head through the opening and became stuck. With the help from the homeowners and a little baby oil, our wardens were able to safely free Mr. Fox, the post said, although I am sure he was tired out. Okay, I get it. And he quickly ran into the tall grass unharmed. That's great, though. I'm glad that Mr. Fox lives to see another day. So next up is world news, and thank you so much for Sri Lanka listening. I am very honored that you guys have started listening, and I am very, very excited to, just have you as a listener. This is great. It humbles me each time I get a new country listening, because it's like they've actually tuned into me somehow they've actually found me out there on the internet, little old me, and it makes me feel great. It does. So the first world news segment, of course, is going to be about Sri Lanka. So let's get into it. See, now that I've actually looked up the news in Sri Lanka, I can understand why people in Sri Lanka are listening to the radio station or to the podcast. So apparently we're not the only people dealing with inflation, America. In Sri Lanka, inflation means food shortages, blackouts, and days-long lines for gas. We thought we had it bad here. Colombo, Sri Lanka, instead of going to school, 12 years old Cecile Michael is guarding her family's car at a gas station in Sri Lanka's capital. Her sisters and parents are all taking turns. They've been waiting in line to fill up their gas tank for 4 days, sleeping in their car. Oh my God. They're not actually allowed to refuel for another day. Sri Lanka has implemented a gas rationing system based on license plates, similar to what parts of the United States did in the 1970s oil crisis, but the Michael family lined up early. There are thousands of cars and rickshaws in front of them. I don't like it. It's exhausting, it's hot, and we can't afford food, Cecile says. Lots of countries are dealing with rising prices. Sri Lankans are among those suffering the most. Inflation in the Indian Ocean island nation now tops 60%. Food prices have nearly doubled. There are rolling blackouts, food shortages, and political unrest. Sri Lanka was once a prosperous place. It's a sad turnaround for a country that until 2020 had been classified by the World Bank as an upper middle income country. It was relatively prosperous with nearly double the gross domestic product per capita of its neighbor India. So the thing that I learned about inflation is that it's not just about the raising prices. The reason why the prices are doubling and raising is because the government is printing too much money. The government prints way too much money, higher than the price of the gross national product, meaning that the gross national product has to rise in price in order for not for debt not to happen, but it's already happening. Let's see, Sri Lanka is going backward because of those who have stolen our money, says Cecile's father, Christopher Michael, an office temp worker who is 61. Why did you mismanage the country? He blames the Rajapaksa family, Mahinda Rajapaksa, and Sri Lanka's president from 2005 to 2015, and also served as prime minister 3 times. Most recently, until May, his brother Gotabaya Rajapaksa was president from 2019 until this last month. Both brothers recently resigned their posts, Mahinda in May and Gotabaya in July, amid massive public protests accusing them of mismanaging the country's finances and driving its economy into the ground. Yeah, I should say so, because, like I said, inflation means that the government established in any country that is dealing with inflation, it means that they're printing way too much money, higher than the gross national product. But Sri Lanka's tourism-fueled economy was also devastated by a 2019 terror attack and the COVID-19 pandemic. Last month, protesters occupied the presidential palace, swimming in its pool, cooking meals in the kitchen, and then allegedly set fire to the prime minister's residence. Politicians had evacuated before the demonstrators got there, but no one was hurt. After Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore last month, the country got a new president, veteran politician Ranil Wickremesinghe. I'm sure I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. He has the difficult task of trying to negotiate a bailout from the International Monetary Fund, but he's already unpopular and belligerent. Wicker. Oh my gosh, his name is so long. Wickremesinghe. Okay, Wickremesinghe. Okay, his office has not responded to multiple requests by NPR for an interview. On Wednesday, Wickremesinghe gave his first presidential speech to Parliament, in which he promised to meet some of the protesters' demands to amend the Constitution to limit his own powers and form an all-party government. He did not specify a time frame. When economies collapse, does the nationalism surge? When any economy collapses, there are fears that nationalism, divisive populist politics, or racism might surge. Sri Lanka is predominantly Buddhist, about 70%, with a delicate mix of minorities. It had a bloody 26-year civil war, which ended in 2009, and the horrors of that are still raw. Deep divisions remain and could be exploited. Yeah. But there's no evidence of that in Colombo's fuel lines. I've never felt such unity, says Akil Aswar, 18, who is Muslim, a minority community that's faced persecution. He describes how he was sleeping on the ground next to his motorbike waiting for fuel when a stranger in the gas line invited him to sleep in an air-conditioned car. Instead, rich and poor, Shinala and Tamil, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, they're all in this line, Aswar says. All of the country's ethnic and religious groups are also represented at a massive protest camp on the Gal Face Green, a park in Colombo's sprawling seafront, where demonstrators have erected tents, first aid stations, and stage for musical acts and artists. Aww. I'm really touched seeing that, because that's, I feel, how the world should be. Despite everybody's differences, they all come together, especially in crisis. But I feel like we should come together even when there isn't a crisis too. Because even when a real crisis like this happens, there's also just personal crisis in other people's lives that we don't get to see a lot. And I love that Sri Lanka is kind of putting away their side, like their differences, and taking everybody else's side and helping each other out. That's beautiful. But clergy act as human shields. Oh my God. This is where anger about Sri Lanka's economy has morphed into a political movement, which ousted the president and is now taking aim to another. Some of the most iconic images from the months-long protests are of clergy from Sri Lanka's different religions marching from like arm in arm. So okay, Buddhist monks, Muslim imams, and Catholic nuns shared food to break the Ramadan fast together. Christian priests and Buddhist monks prayed in unison. Alongside the protest tents, Mirawate Kashyapa, a bald Buddhist monk in a burgundy robe, is chanting in Sanskrit. Okay. He's a forest monk who normally spends his time meditating under trees. A few months ago, he walked out of the forest and joined the anti-government protests. Wow. We are like brothers and sisters here, Kashyapya 52 says. Ouch, hang on, my eye itches. Oh, I don't like that. Some Catholic nuns joined too, and together we decided to act as human shields for the protesters. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, my eye still itches. I don't understand this. Oh, ouch, jeez. Ugh. Ouch. Ugh. Okay, that was some itch. I don't understand. Okay. He's describing what happened on the night of July 2022, or I'm sorry, July 22nd, when the military moved in to try to oust protesters from the Galley Face Green area. and clashes erupted. The monk points to scars on his neck. He says soldiers attacked him with some sort of cable or whip. That's crazy. Ugh. I don't know what happened in the corner of my eye, but it just decided to erupt and just be mean to me. I'm sorry. A violent message to the majority. The Rajapaksa's followed a Buddhist nationalist political ideology throughout the Civil War, and also in recent years, Sri Lankans grew accustomed to seeing the state use violence against minorities. Okay, now my other eye is itching. I don't understand this. Okay. It's shocking when a Buddhist monk is assaulted, says Sri Sharar, a human rights activist who's frequented the protest. It sends a message that Shinala Buddhists majority, that they are not immune. People really felt that their children had been attacked. Attacking protesters may be one way the Rajapaksas and their successor Wickraman Singh have sought to impose order, but Sarar predicts it'll backfire by uniting protesters more. For the first part, the monk Kashyapa is undeterred. He vows to stay at the camp in Galley-Face Green, meditating and protesting until the economic crisis is over. But others can't do that. They've got to head back to the fuel line. The fuel line as the Great Leveler. As darkness falls under Colombo, thousands of people prepare to spend yet another night sleeping in their cars, waiting for fuel. But one recent evening, a cheer goes up through the crowd as at one gas station, the street lights have just flashed on after a blackout and lasted hours. Okay, people erupt in celebration. Irrespective of your social status, irrespective of your income level, you have to stand in the queue. It's unifying, says W.A. Renda, former deputy governor of Sri Lanka's central bank. The former bank official himself recently spent 50 hours in line to buy 20 liters of gasoline. Nobody knew who I was, and therefore they freely spoke to me. We shared food also because when you stand in the queue for 10 hours, it's a unifying element, he says. There are many different people. Across Sri Lanka, there are many different people waiting in line for gas. They're also waiting for solutions to a crisis that's brought their country to its knees, and many fear that wait could last several more months or even years. Alright, we got some news coming from Israel. Let's read this. Your time is up. Israeli forces kill terrorist leader, attack Islamic Jihad in Gaza. So on Friday, Israeli defense forces announced Operation Breaking Dawn to attack Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists in the Gaza Strip. Reports state that the IDF killed Taysir al-Jabari, a senior Islamic Jihad terrorist commander who supervised terrorist forces. So, reports indicated that Palestinian Islamic Jihad was planning an attack on Israelis living here in Gaza. Let's see. Forcing the residents to go into hiding. That followed Israel's arrest of Palestinian Islamic Jihad's terrorist leader Bassam al-Sadi in Jenin, or a hotbed of Palestinian terrorist action. On Monday night, Jabari, killed in the Friday attack, was suspected of planning a terrorist response to the arrest of Sadi. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid stated bluntly, "Let everyone who rises to attack Israel know that we will reach him." Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz spoke to local authorities in the Israeli communities bordering Gaza, which have been targeted by Palestinian terrorists from Gaza for years. The situation in Israel's south is tense, Gantz stated, according to Israel National News. I came here with the IDF's chief of the General Staff, head of the ISA, and the General of the Southern Command in order to conduct situational assessment and to prepare the actions that will remove the threat on this region. In accordance with the operational consideration of the State of Israel. Okay. First, I would like to express my support for all of the communities bordering Gaza. He continued, "The State of Israel has the duty and responsibility to defend and protect you. The citizens of Israel and the residents of Israel South in particular have shown extraordinary resilience over the years. Our mission is to ensure that the tension cases and that routine returns. To the southern communities, we stand with you, and we will take all the measures required in order to defend you in a manner that is both decisive and responsible, and that meets the operational considerations set to bring about the desired results." Then Gantz addressed the terrorist forces in Gaza. To our enemies, and specifically to the leadership of Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, I would like to emphasize, your time is up. The threat will be removed one way or another. The situation in which several terrorists hold the Gazan people hostage will backfire. Those who harm the ability of 14,000 workers to make a living, who cause produce to sit and spoil at crossing points, and who lead the electricity and food shortages, hurt the people of Gaza first and foremost, and will have to take responsibility. I would like to address that the international community specify the countries involved in Gaza. The State of Israel operates in a responsible and restrained manner for a place of strength, or from a place of strength, Gantz asserted. We will operate with internal resilience and external strength in order to restore routine of life in Israel's South. We do not seek conflict, yet we will not hesitate to defend our citizens if required. The State of Israel and the IDF will continue its operations, knowing the responsibility we bear on our shoulders to defend the communities and citizens of Israel's South, and to defend the citizens of the entire state of Israel. Yeah, the thing is, hang on. I'm sorry. I was reading the comments. No, don't mess with Israel. They are a small country, but listen, they are very tough. I love you, Israel. I will always love you. Alright, this next one is Brazil. Now, Brazil failing to fully investigate Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira murders. So, let's see. Rights groups accuse Brazilian government of not employing sufficient resources to examine the case. Leading human rights organizations have criticized the Brazilian government for what they say is a failure to properly investigate the murders of indigenous activist Bruno Pereira and British journalist Dom Phillips. So, the two women were shot... I'm sorry, I don't know why... Okay, the two men were shot dead in June, but 8 organizations said that from the moment they disappeared to the discovery of their bodies to the indictment of 3 men for their murders, Brazilian authorities have not employed sufficient resources to fully comprehend all the elements in the case and the responsibility of all those involved. The far-right government of President Jair Bolsonaro has also failed to implement measures to prevent tragedies like those that happened to Dom and Bruno from occurring to their people who are active in the area. The organizations wrote in a letter to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, promise to bolster security in the notoriously unsafe Amazonian region have not been translated into concrete actions. The letter sent on the 27th of July, but only made public this week. So, the signatories include Article 19 Reporters Without Borders and the Brazilian Association of Investigative Journalism, and comes after the Bolsonaro administration said it had complied with the Commission's request. Phillips and Pereira went missing on the 5th of June at the end of a trip in the Yavari Valley, a densely forested region in Brazil's western border with Peru. Phillips was researching a book called How to Save the Amazon and was aided by Pereira, who worked with indigenous tribes there and knew the region well. The pair were shot dead at the side of the Itaquai River by men who ambushed their boat and headed towards their final destination of Atalaia do Norte. Okay. Let's see here. The alleged killers had clashed with Pereira and on previous occasions, a former official with Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, he had challenged them for fishing illegally in the areas in and around tribal reservations. Let's see. They had exchanged words, and the day before they were killed, he accused the accused brandished weapons as the pair passed on the boat. Okay, police believe Pereira was a target and Phillips was killed after he photographed men. Pereira, carried a weapon and gunfire was exchanged before the activist and guide was shot 3 times and Phillips once. The killers buried their bodies in the jungle but helped police recover the remains after they were arrested. The 3, all local fishers, were officially charged on the 22nd of July. However, local indigenous groups claim the men were not acting alone, but with the knowledge for encouragement of organized crime groups. The Yavari Valley area is known for illegal fishing, ranching, prospecting, and logging, and drug gangs are active in the tri-border area shared by Brazil, Peru, and Colombia. Earlier this year, indigenous organizations gave police a dossier detailing the existence of mafias in the area, and in June said an organized group planned every detail of this crime. The rights group's letter made public on Monday criticized Bolsonaro government for not investigating those links more fully. Officials played down the border plot involving the organized crime. Okay, the human rights organizations also criticized the government for not crediting the indigenous groups who helped in the search and investigation efforts. So, awesome. I mean, it's not awesome that they died. I don't know. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the trenches next time. The reason why I decided not to do a live on YouTube is just because my hotspot is not working at the moment. And once that is started up and working and again, we'll go live again. So thank you very much for listening, guys. I love you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.